the epitome example for me is that ivermectin case, where this thing's been actively censored and downplayed to the extent that every person is now a walking billboard for vaccine safety, where we actually don't know vaccine safety. To say that something is safe that we've never put into a complex system before, and it works.
Smoking's bad for you too, right?
Right. It
you know,
works.
like I just, on the bright side, maybe the vaccine is killing people. It's kind of like that's the negative, but it's also the positive, because traditionally violence is used against upstarts and rebellious folks. So if it's punishing submission from if I'm looking at just a chessboard, this is a terrible thing to say to go out on. So
I
you want to bring this back to something lighter. It's like
there was a second there where I was going to call you a son of a bitch, but now from that perspective, I definitely understand where that comes from. I wasn't actually going to call you a son of a bitch. Maybe I was just going to think it for a little bit.
Fair enough. No, you should. That's the kind of conversations you want to have, right? Where somebody has a instinctive rejection of what you say and then processes it. The violence, this sort of focused level of conflict and friction is much better than if we build it up and then send an army to another country to take their shit.
Mm-hmm.
And again, politics is just fooling people into using what would otherwise be laudable qualities into hurting other people, so that the people that are doing the trickery are getting extra portions.
Yeah. And on that same vein with the vaccine, I think that if people understand that the thing that they've been pushing for is actually maybe not, it wasn't the best thing that we could have done. There were better options, but those were actively dissuaded and censored and oppressed. Then I think my hope is that by people understanding that, we can take a look back and say, well, maybe I was wrong. That's my whole thesis towards this idea is, what if we're wrong about this? What if we're wrong about that? Wouldn't it be better if we just had open discussion towards everything, and then we could actually come towards a truth by a Darwinian process of evolution and the evolution of ideas? I think that's far superior. So I do think that a lot of horrible ideas are going to come out of that, but I think that that's something that we have to be willing to accept to come towards the truth.
Yeah, I find meeting people at the finish line, because that's an interesting rational discussion, basically, right? And it's I like the Socratic thing, but it's to me, I just care whether or not I have to do something or don't have to, and then you need to justify why I have to do something. Mm-hmm. So if I can get right down to the brass tacks in terms of it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters to me that the truth is being told. That's important. But the truth being suppressed wouldn't have the same effect if we had hard, fast liberty. So it would outperform the need for seeking truth, which is what's interesting to me. So it wouldn't really matter if vaccines are good or bad, or this one in particular, and if you're if what you're talking about is snake oil or not. It wouldn't really matter, because I could just do what I want and pursue the knowledge as much as I'm willing to, and I could have people that I talk to about it. But again, you've got to put effort into that. So it would incentivize, buyer beware, basically, right? We had the food pyramid for a long time. I'm pescatarian now. I was raw vegan for a while. It pushed a lot of trauma out to the surface and got me, to a better position. And then I started examining vitamin E and D and just getting my omegas and shit, right? And going, okay, well, I can't really afford to spend my entire life managing bananas and finding vegan alternatives to omegas. And so I did whatever mental gymnastics I had to get to whatever my diet is. But my point is, I'm actively concerned about what goes in to my body. And with the media, right? And if people don't want to do that, I don't know if there's a lot of ways to softly or through positive incentives or positive, what's that called? Positive response or positive reinforcement to get the right behavior out of people, because generally we respond to pain more. You know what I mean? Like Carlos Castaneda with the Tales of Don Juan. Did you ever read that series?
No.
Okay. Basically, a guy does peyote. A white guy does peyote in Mexico or whatever, and writes 5 books about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But the thesis, I think, essentially is just the ego needs to be tricked into knowledge. Like you can be given knowledge. I could read a book on Jeet Kune Do, and I could appreciate Bruce Lee's perspective and all the philosophy. But unless I'm still going to like be drawn to form in martial arts because like my mind has like a structured masculine sort of logical thing, and I want to create like katas and do that. So like in order to truly take on this knowledge that Bruce Lee wants to give me, he needs to beat me up, or I need to lose a fight.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Now you can wizards, if you roll an 18 on your intelligence, you can be a wizard and you can pursue knowledge for knowledge's sake. And there are some people that can do that, but the vast majority, myself included, on many topics, needs to be tricked into new information.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're racist, you need to see a black guy like not stealing a television, I guess. You know what I mean? Like you need your ego needs to be challenged in a way that is immutable, which is why I make propaganda, in fact. Because that's what the media does, right? Like that's just when a piece of art is put static and it's like a little pill that you swallow. That's how you get past people's ego boundaries. So having discussions is one thing, but it's interesting that we're always talking about like what the best outcome is for forcing people,
mm-hmm.
when not forcing people. And I'm not a huge fan of Darwin even, you know what I mean? Like those ideas are limited. But that is the most righteous outcome, because then you're just going to help the people that you can help, starting with yourself. And you will be forced to do, research, and you'll be forced to form community, form ideas from the ground up instead of having them spoon-fed to you. I think that's the solution for humanity winning against the machine. If you're coming back to that, like there's lots of like cures that we should be discussing. I think that the fact that it's even on the table that you can force somebody to not only pay for the product, but to put something in their body that they don't know anything about in order for them to participate in society is the issue. Not whether or not we're having rational conversations about what the cure should and shouldn't be. It's like, if I want to die of this virus because I don't want any of the cures, that's my right. And if you guys don't want to associate with me, that's fine, right? But like, I had to participate in the building of the roads financially, so I am entitled to those. If you provide me with some reserve to live off of, I could be excommunicated to that.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I'm talking about, though, is this, like, authority is what we need to be considering, because the anarchical model of like utilizing everyone's input is what's going to find the best solution. It's the maximum amount of freedom with the least amount of violence, I think, is what humanity should be working towards. Yeah, so it's not to say we got to throw some people in prison, but we shouldn't be throwing drug dealers in prison, and we shouldn't be throwing. It's like, okay, so you want to get your message out about what's the name of the drug?
Ivermectin.
It's Ivermectin. So you want to get this message out. You're not allowed to on YouTube, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I want to open my own platform and put it out there. Well, you're not allowed to do that. You have to, right? And even if you get the permits to do that, Google's going to run direct interference on you. So what, like make your own internet? Okay, well you can't, okay, so you set up a Patreon, and then the Patreon doesn't allow you to trade through them because of your ideas. And so you set up your own version of Patreon, and then the credit card companies blacklist you for being a terrorist. And that, like, a lot of that stuff happened in the Reagan and Clinton eras. A lot of the laws got written for that. But like, and then especially after 9/11, this is basically just 9/11 2.0 in my opinion, because like all the Patriot Act did was set up the financial regulation to, under the guise of stopping terrorism, limit people's financial freedom. So you cannot set up your own credit card, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so you have to go all the way to like, you're going to have to set up your own bank, your own central banking system, because the credit card company can stop you based on money laundering for terrorism, just abstractly, and they could blacklist you across the board, which means you can't really start your own Patreon. You can't really start your own forum because of that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you're limited in telling your message, not because people don't want to hear the truth, but just because you're not allowed to by people with guns. And Gaddafi tried to start a central bank in, you know, and create a gold-backed currency for Africa, and they raped him to death with a bayonet. You know, like, it's not, that's what you're up against is, so I think changing the mind of people in terms of like what we should be allowed to force people to do is probably the best conversation to have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I don't know. I guess we're trying to protect people from snake oil. Is that like, that's the pretense? I'm like, well, if a guy buys snake oil, like, unless it kills him, and even if it does, Coca-Cola is not good for you.
Mm-hmm.
And they're allowed to have pictures of families having a great time drinking this poison. And I'm saying this because every 3 months I get an ice cold bottle of Coke and I enjoy the first 3 sips of it like it's orgasmic. You know what I mean? Like, it's just sugar and caffeine, and it's also youth, and it's also all of the indoctrination that I've been given. You know, more than my parents probably Coca-Cola talked to me about happiness and the pursuit of it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and like, I can't, whatever, it's poison. I should be allowed to drink it if I want. And if I want to break that cycle of abuse, that's my prerogative. But having the cops show up and like take me to a women's shelter or whatever is not really the solution, right? Like that, like, I need to leave. If you want to build like alternatives to Coke or give people that information, that should be allowed. Coke's got no interest in letting people talk shit about it, though. I know I'm kind of picking on Coke, but I feel like I'm punching up, not down.